Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to, I was going to say unapologetically 50 plus, but it's not because I got Miss Miriam on with me. My name is Angela from Unapologetically 50 plus, and I have Miriam.
Hello, I am the exit queen, and you guys know me from all my platforms. There's so many, I guess, now. Since we out of here and exit with fire. And I'm here with Angela to talk
Yay.
to you ladies.
So today we are diving into something I think every woman over 45 has felt at some point, and that's emotional overdraft. And what does that mean? That's the moment when you realize you have been giving way more than you're getting. You're doing all the things, but underneath it all, underneath it all, you're running on empty. So emotional overdraft also happens when your emotional output consistently exceeds your input. You keep giving even when you know your spirit is asking you to stop. So that is what we are going to talk about. And yeah, I'm going to get into it because this is also a part of what we will be discussing in our
Freedom Formula Journey.
thank you, because my brain just went blank. It's still too early here. My brain went
That means
blank.
you're doing too much. See, you're doing too much.
I'm doing too much. So, today we're unpacking what that looks like, why it's so hard to stop, and how to start rebuilding from a full cup and not on an empty one. So, Mary, before we dive in, when you hear the phrase emotional overdraft, what comes to your mind for you personally?
It means taking on other people's issues. It can mean wow, it means so much for me. Um, Taking on other people's, not only their issues, but other people's opinions of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And don't mind my dog he's always here, right next to me. And those are the big ones, I think, the issues and opinions, because a lot of times those things right there can keep you feeling a certain way so that you don't have the confidence to move forward and to get out of that zone that they're making you feel.
And I would also say their emotional energy. That's what sometimes, and I think that sometimes for me can be hard to break away from is, if you see, and especially if you're an empath, and if an empath basically is, when you feel other people's energy and you take on that energy and you try and help them solve their problems so that, and you become so highly involved, that kind of, it drains your own energy. So to me, emotional energy is also a big one, that can cause us that emotional overdraft.
Right.
Um, so emotional overdraft doesn't always look like chaos or breakdown. Sometimes it just looks like handling it. It looks like being the reliable one, all the things we talked about, the strong one, the one who never drops the ball.
Mhm.
But here's the truth: even we all get tired. We get tired of managing it all. We get tired of holding space for everyone else, tired of smiling through what feels like constant depletion. So you might notice it through like small signs, like when you're irritable, maybe you have loss of joy, guilt around resting. I mean, you were talking just a few minutes ago where you had to take a nap because you're doing a lot, and you said, I just need to take a nap and really regain and build up fill up your cup. Basically, you
Mhm.
needed to refill your cup. And sometimes when we feel guilty about resting, and I know I'm definitely one of those who do feel guilty about taking a nap during the middle of the day. Now I might go to bed at 7:30, but taking a nap during the middle of the day is, that's hard for me. Or
Yeah.
even feeling invisible, even while being constantly needed. People don't realize that, hey, look at all the things you're doing, and not I guess not telling you, thank you for doing this. You're doing a great job, or even taking some of that stuff off your plate.
Mhm.
So,
And you're talking about when you're in a relationship.
well, it doesn't have to be in a relationship. It could
'Cause
just be a family member.
the only thing that would say that to me now is my dog, and he's not gonna say that. He's just
Well, yeah, in your case, yeah, but I mean, if you had, even if you had your sister around, or you know, a friend around, or
yeah.
because right now you are, in Spain by yourself. But if you had that other support system, having
Mhm.
someone say, "Oh, you know what? I got you. I'll do this. You just,
Yeah, yeah.
I got it."
Yeah, and my sister did do that when she was here visiting. She would
Mhm.
cook, like, when I was just too tired, she knew I was working all day here,
Yeah,
and she would cook or something, or take the dog out for me, and that was a big, you know,
a big deal. Yeah, it helps.
yeah, but I think a lot of it is like I used to feel that way, what you're saying about like feeling guilty about, taking a nap, or feeling guilty about not putting my all into something, or saying no. But after a while, like since I've learned to set those boundaries. I've learned
Hmm.
to say no, and I've learned when I am at my limit and I can't give anymore,
Right,
and I know when someone is crossing over into my aura and I don't want them to. I know how to shut that down, because I'm also a Reiki master. So,
okay,
and that's one of the things that we'll do in the freedom formula journey. I will be giving some Reiki energy to people
okay.
too. And that helps to also reset your nervous system and everything. So I've learned to just shut that out, and so that people can't cross over to me anymore. So, you can call it cold. Some people would call that cold, but you don't call that cold when it's a man who does that, but
Right.
when
Good
a woman
point.
does that, it's like, oh, she's something, or she thinks she's something. She's like saying no
Or the
all the
other word, the B word. Like
yeah, I must say that.
she just being a
But it's
bitch.
like, no, I know when I know what's good for me. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, that's what comes first.
Yeah,
Because I'm not traveling down this road for you. I'm doing it for
right,
me.
right,
So,
right.
you know,
So, do you remember a time when you realized you were emotionally overdrawn? Even
oh,
even though everything looked fine on the outside?
I mean, in work, relationship, family,
Mhm.
I think I've said this before, where at one point in time, my sister came to visit from Chicago, when I was still in the States, and we were around all the family, and she was asking people like, "Oh, can so and so do this for me?" And people, I mean, everybody, wanted to be very helpful and stuff. And she said, "Well, I'm not even going to ask Miriam because she's going to say no." And she was right, because I am. I'm gonna say no. Like, I was busy too, and I knew that I couldn't handle anymore, and so don't ask me anything at this point in time, because I'm gonna say no. So
Right. And that's another thing, we have to know what our limit is. And I think sometimes, even though we know, we still think we can give just a little bit more, just squeeze out a little bit more steam out of this engine, just push it a little bit further. And then, there's this book, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of The Body Will Tell You. Oh God, I can't remember the name of
body
it.
keeps
But
score.
the body keeps score. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. And that is so true,
Yeah.
because if you don't slow down, and if you don't take into consideration or account how your body is feeling, how,
Mhm.
if you're getting, if you're emotionally drained, if you're constantly getting sick, if you're constantly irritable, even if you're constantly, losing weight, that could be an underlying issue. And your body might be trying to tell you, look, it's time for you to slow down, or I'm going to make you slow down. And you don't
Right.
want your body to make you slow down, because,
That's
and
true.
that's not going to end well end well for you or for anybody else. So
Right.
we have got to know, we have got to set those boundaries on, look, I am not going to do this, or I am not available for this, or I have given you enough of whatever, fill in the blank. But we've got to hold ourselves accountable and stick to that. When we say something, stick to it, you know,
Yeah.
unless it's dire emergency for someone else, whatever you put into place, whatever that boundary is, then that's
Mhm.
what you need to stick to in order for you not to feel, you know, drained or emotionally drained, physically drained, all those things. So,
Yeah. And giving more than you're getting can also, when it shows up in your relationships, like I know in my previous relationship, it showed up as being loyal and loyal to a fault. And it was like, wait a minute, I'm not getting it back though. So why am I going out of my comfort zone to, it's not comfort zone, but why am I going to the ends of the earth to be so loyal when,
right,
and that happens in relationships, in friendships, in
right,
work. I even at a job, I remember staying late all the time. I mean, I worked 12-hour days because I was hoping that I wanted to get that pat on the back. I wanted to be
right,
rewarded in some kind of way, and that didn't happen. I didn't get the pat on the back or the bonus or anything. So it was like, expected after a while.
right,
And I thought I was being dependable, but I looked around and realized nobody was clapping for me. Nobody was giving me a pat on the back or a birthday card or nothing. And not because they didn't care really, but because I had trained them to expect my overgiving,
right.
and
And
that
nobody else in the office was. Marion
yeah.
will do it. She'll do it. She got
At the
it.
end of the day, at 8 o'clock PM, there were 2 of us there in the office and I don't know if this is like, no, it can't be. I was gonna say, I don't know if it's a cultural thing because me and one other woman of the same color, we were still there too. And after a while, when I would get ready to leave, I was like, I'm not saying anymore. I'm not going to do it. And then I would pass by her office. Are you leaving soon? She's like, oh, yeah, well, I still have work to do and stuff. I said, look, Slave Master went home a long time ago. Like, you need to get up out of here too.
Right,
And
right,
that's the reality of it too. Like, we're not, what are we doing? Why are we like acting as if it's our company? Why are we putting our
right.
heart and soul into something that where people will get rid of us or replace us in 2 weeks if we
Girl,
left?
girl,
So
I
what's the
can
point
attest to
of
that.
overgiving like that? Yeah, what's the point of overgiving like that? We're
Right.
exhausting ourselves for what? For who?
For who? For who? So let's talk about why we stay in that cycle. So even when we know it's draining us, and I know part of it is habit, part of it is fear, but we also have to think about part of it is what we identify with. So we spent decades doing all the things, like you said, giving your all to your job. At our age, we might be caretaking or caretakers for our family member, and we're the problem solvers. As especially as mothers and wives and spouses and just women, we are problem solvers, and we want that praise. Sometimes we get that praise, and sometimes we don't, but we've been praised for doing it all. And then somewhere along the line, we internalize that praise as proof of our worth.
Right, right. To
So
prove that you're enough.
to
Yeah.
prove that you're enough, that, like you said, to get that pat on the back. And then when you don't get that pat on the back, then either you say, I'm not doing no more, or you keep doing even more because somewhere inside of us, we need that approval. We need that, oh, great job. Thank you. Well, with that, thank you. I need to see some money in my account. I need to see
Hello.
some extra dollars, some extra zeros in that account. But no, a lot of times that doesn't happen because, I know for me and my, work experiences, it was, well, yeah, you did this, but there was always that, but,
Mhm.
you didn't go just a little bit more. And after a while, I was like, well, you know what? I guess I that bonus that I thought I was gonna get is I mean, Uncle Sam gonna take half anyway, so I might as well just not even worry about it and
Mm,
stress myself out as much. So, even when our bodies say slow down, we're conditioned to keep going.
mhm. Yeah.
So that's what we have to really think about. We are conditioned, and how do we break that cycle? How do we break that cycle of um, just keep going, just keep pushing, and breaking that cycle before you hit 50? Because some of us might not make 50 if we keep pushing the way we're pushing. And I know that our culture, especially in America, is, work hard. If you want to get anywhere, you have to work hard and blah, blah, blah. And I understand that working hard is important, but what are you working hard for? Who are you working hard for?
Mhm.
And this
Right.
is not just in the job. I'm not talking about just, career wise, but just in anything that you do. Where is your tipping point where you say, I'm not going to give, I'm not going to give 80% of myself if I'm only getting 20% back in
Right.
anything, whether it's a relationship, a job, with your children, with just expectations, societal expectations. When do you start saying, okay, when am I going to get my cup filled?
And
So,
it's really knowing that balance,
mhm,
and
mhm,
knowing your limits. You don't keep going and keep going, even if you have to write it down. What are your limits? What are your limits at work? How many hours will you work? How much time will you put in this project? You know,
mhm,
before you say, okay, that's it, I've done my part. it's
right.
it's recognizing that love, work, and relationships should all have a flow of give and receive, even
Give
at
and
work.
receive.
You can't be
Right,
putting all this work and you're not getting anything for it.
right.
And I, and that's when they called me into the office the last time, I was like, you know what? They tried to play a card and say, you know what, you don't seem happy here anymore, because they thought that I would just, cow down and say, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I'll do better.
I'll
No,
do. Mhm.
I'm leaving at the end of the month. And that all came, God just spoke to me and say it now. And that's what I did. And I haven't looked back yet. The
Yeah,
only time I talk about it is in, these examples and stuff. But I think
yeah.
don't when you don't put those boundaries in place, it's a form of self-neglect,
Mm,
because
mm,
you have to know, how much you're going to pour out of yourself. You're
right,
giving up so much of yourself. Why would you empty yourself like that for people who don't respect you, who are not giving back to you?
right,
That makes sense. It's
right,
neglect.
right. So why do you think women have trouble slowing down,
I
in
think
your
it's that
opinion?
quality, just like, we're conditioned, like you said, to give more to our, in our families, like to our kids. And even in a relationship, that nurturing quality will kick in,
Mm,
and we have to know when to cut it off, because
yeah,
it's something that we innately feel for children that we have, but we have to know when to cut that off when it comes to other people.
yeah. I mean, even your children at a certain age, you've got to learn how to say, okay, I've given you the tools.
Mhm.
And yes, I'll always be here to help,
Mhm.
but you've got to learn how to figure some of this out on your own, you
Yeah.
know? So that's, and I also think it's fear of who will be if we're not constantly doing,
Mhm.
who am I if I'm not constantly doing? And I mean, that's something we need to think about.
Mhm.
Because if you sit down and really take the time and say, "Who will I be, or who do I wanna become at this stage of my life?" Since we're talking about, women 45 and over, who will I become?
Right.
And this is a great time to, if you wanna call it transform, if you just wanna call it evolve, whatever you wanna call it, word you want to use, this is a great time to figure out, okay, who am I in this next season of my life? Who am I?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea to write those things down. Keep a
Yeah.
journal. Write down where your energy is going, and
Right.
what feeds you at the
Right.
end of the day, and what drains you dry. Like you have to
Right.
know those things for yourself so that you can start to redefine your own worth.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you don't have to earn love or appreciation through performance, because that's what you're doing
Right.
when you're over giving and stuff. So you got to set those boundaries and not have guilt about it at all, and practice that receiving, because you should
Right.
receive back. But
Right.
so you got to, but it's a practice. It really is. It's
It
like
is.
people say, when somebody gives you a compliment, and you say, "Oh, thank you. You have a nice so and so too. Your hair looks pretty too." Like, no, just receive the compliment, just say thank you, and that's it.
Right.
Or somebody feels guilty because somebody got them something, and then they didn't give them anything back. Well, it's
Right.
okay, because when somebody gives you something, it's more for the giver than it is for the receiver. It
Right.
makes me feel good when I give somebody something. It's like, oh yeah, I look forward to seeing them light up, and be happy
Right.
they're
Right.
receiving this. So, I don't expect anything back because it was my idea to give them something. So you practice
Mm-hmm.
receiving, and that takes work, to do that, or it's a skill to do
Yeah.
that. But you start small with compliments, with acts of kindness, and you go from there. But ask yourself also, if I stopped pouring today, whether it's work or a relationship, would it survive if I
Mm.
stop?
Mm.
So ask yourself those questions, write it out.
Right. Exactly. And I often see women, when we're talking about rest, women afraid to rest, not because they don't want the peace, but because peace feels so unfamiliar. And that's another hurdle we have to cross. Why does peace in our life seem so unfamiliar? That's not good. That goes to show just how our society in general doesn't value peace, you know. And I can only, I can't speak for, how folks in Spain live, but as we know, in the Americas, it's almost like we talk about peace, but do we really take the time to figure out what does that mean in our lives? What does that mean, and how do we acquire that peace, truly
Hmm.
acquire that peace? Not the superficial, I'm just going to meditate and om, but really feel that peace and carry it with you throughout the day. And
And I
that's
think
something
you have to
Mhm.
look at how, um, I know for me, I had to look at my upbringing, because it was a tumultuous childhood.
Mm,
So I had to think, why do I feel this way about certain things? Why am I on edge? Why is that? Because that's how I grew up. So I
right,
had to, you know, readdress those, and to heal them so that
right,
they don't manifest again, when
right,
I'm in certain situations. And it takes a healing, but you have to recognize it first, name it, write it down, something, call it out, in order to be able to address it and heal it,
right.
because that's
No,
why those things come up.
okay. So, how do we rebalance our energy, our emotional energy? So let's talk about a few practices that can help us shift from depletion to alignment. And one of those, and you've talked about it already, your daily emotional check in. Each morning, ask yourself, what do I honestly have the capacity for today? Like you, Miriam, you said you were doing too much and you had too much on your head. So you said, I'm going to go take a nap. And you took a long nap.
It's a long nap.
So you knew what your capacity was today. And each day is going to be different. Each day
Mhm,
you might have more energy to give. And then some days you have to just say, I'm throwing in the towel today. I can't. I
mhm,
can't. And you really have to check in with yourself. You really have to check in and be honest with yourself.
mhm.
And then also not put that guilt on yourself when you say, you know what, I have the emotional energy to only do two things today, and that's it. And
Right.
figure out what those two things are, do it, and then go for a walk, go sit by the beach if you can, go have a picnic by yourself, go get some damn ice cream, whatever makes you feel good, then that's what you need to do. But you need to ask yourself each morning, what do I honestly have the capacity for today? And
Mhm.
don't feel guilty, whatever your answer is.
Right.
And it's not what others expect of you, not what's on your to-do list, but what feels right for your energy and your spirit. Anything you want to add to that, love?
You are absolutely right, and that's spot on. And I also think that it takes practice doing it,
Yeah.
because it reminds me of when my daughter was little and she was acting, and I would practice with her, like role play with her, and
Mhm.
even in that, and or even if it was like when we were talking about stranger danger.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's role play if this happens, and whatever. I mean, I think that even in those situations, when it comes to setting boundaries, you need to practice. Like, what if somebody says to you at work, all right, they plop a big load of work on you and you don't want to do it, you don't want to stay late. What are you going to say? And how are
Right.
you going to say it? I mean, these kinds of things take practice. And
Right.
I
Right.
have to say that those are things that did go through my mind, not necessarily about the work, but other things, other scenarios. And would say them to myself or out loud, like, this is what I would say if this happens,
Mhm.
because that's how we get caught off guard,
Right.
and we end up acquiescing and saying, okay, I'll stay
Right.
late or something
Yeah.
like that. And that's what you don't want to have happen. And you got to be true to yourself. You have to
Yeah.
be true to yourself. So in order to do that, you might need to practice saying no.
Right. Exactly. Number two, redefine enough. So some days your best won't look like it used to, and that's okay. You don't have to perform at 100% every day to be enough. And that's what we have to understand. What is your enough? What are you
Hmm.
going to say? This is all I can give, and I can't perform anymore. I'm not a performing monkey. This is all I can give you today. And hey, maybe tomorrow will be better, maybe it won't. But
Hmm.
again, it goes back to like you were saying, you have to practice that. That does not just come naturally, especially if you've had decades of giving and overgiving and accepting that you're not receiving as much as you're giving, as much as you're putting out.
Right.
Okay.
So, like,
And
what does a healthy reciprocity look like? What do you think that looks like?
like I said before, so if you're constantly giving and
Hmm.
constantly um, making sure everyone else is okay, to
Hmm.
me, a healthy reciprocity is whether it's your spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's if you parents, your siblings, maybe just a friend from work.
Hmm.
What do you need? How can I help you?
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, is there something I can do for you? Here, let me help you with that task if it's at work. Mom,
Want to.
I'll Mom, I'll go ahead and cook dinner.
Hmm.
But someone pouring back into you. And
Right.
not what they think you need. That's why I always think it's good when people ask, "How can I help you?" Because
Right.
what you're giving me because you think that's what I need. That might not be what I need. I might
Right.
say, no, I got dinner. Why don't you go get the groceries? Why don't you do the dishes? Why don't
Mhm.
you vacuum or mop the whatever it is?
Yeah.
But for someone to say, what do you need? How can I help you?
Yes.
You know,
I think
so.
couples need to do more of that. You can start your day like that in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. How can
Right,
I, because it's you want to be of service to other people in relationships and in your business. So
right,
it's all about serving and not
right.
expecting anything in return. So
Exactly.
when you're serving, you're not expecting anything back, and that's a good reciprocity too. But you do get things back because you get like your cup filled
Right,
emotionally from
right.
giving. So, but
Exactly.
when you
Exactly.
overgive, that's when you're just you're pouring everything out.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes, we also have to think we overgive because that also is what we think is expected, and
Mm,
then what other people thinks expected, especially as a parent, as a wife, as even if you're single and have kids, even if you're single, somewhere along someone somewhere along the way, there's an expectation of how much we should be giving as women, you know.
mhm.
Um, Boundaries, and we talk about this constantly because it's very important. Protect your peace. Boundaries aren't about control, they are about clarity. So they tell you this is how I honor myself, and they teach others how to interact with you respectfully and compassionately. So those boundaries are there to protect your peace. But once you set them, you have to remember to stick to them, and we'll keep preaching that, you know,
Uh,
until the cows come home, because that's
mhm,
important. Boundaries
mhm.
protect your peace. Boundaries also teach people how to treat you, and you have to teach people how to
Yes,
treat you.
that
Okay.
part. Mhm.
So let me ask you, Mary, what's one boundary you had to learn the hard way?
Saying yes, saying yes when I didn't want to. I had to learn to say no, and I became the no queen. Like, just no. Like, before the words would get out of their mouth. No, because that I just felt like I had given too much for too many years,
Right.
And after a while, you get burnt out, and you just can't take it anymore. And
Hmm.
so I think one of the like a recent YouTube short I put out was just about, like, just exiting from just everything. So
Mm,
and that's about, it's saying no. It's exiting just out of the conversation, out of this, out of that, just setting that boundary. Like, I'm out. That's it. Don't
yeah.
ask me, because, and that's what I had to do. And
Okay.
that's what helped me.
Okay.
That's good. What about you?
Oh, I would say, well, I'd probably have to say, mm, also learning to say no. Really, 'cause that's the only thing that really pops up. That's a
Mhm.
very strong
Mm,
boundary that it was real hard for me to say no, because and especially, working from home, I was able to work from home, or if I was out in the field, but not having to go into an actual physical job. Being home meant, in my family's eyes, oh well, she's already home, so she can do this, so she can do that. But I'm
mm.
I'm working. I am working. I do
Yeah.
have I still have, metrics and all those things I have to be accountable for with my job. So I
Mhm.
think saying no and me sticking to that was one of the things that was a tough one, because and then even in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm working, but I'm still at home, so I'm not commuting, so I can squeeze in doing this and that, when in reality, that just it almost I almost felt like I had 2 jobs, while I was at home because I was trying to squeeze in, while I'll run to the grocery store or, while I'm on this meeting, I'll be fixing dinner. So that no was something I really had to learn and then stick to. And it was
Mhm.
more, not so much my husband, but my kids, you know. But mom's at home, she can, bring me lunch or I forgot this, she can, so I think I'd have to say that was one of the boundaries that was the hardest for me to stick to.
I remember when I had to set that boundary when I was working from home, when I was back in the States, and I had to let people know, like, look, do not bother me from this time to this time because I'm working. And I think a couple times they tested me, and then after that happened, they didn't test me anymore. That's when I set a boundary, eyes, that's it. But I think also you're setting a boundary and saying no when you are, moving to Portugal. You're about
Right,
to move to Portugal and you're exiting the system. You're exiting the system that says you need to stay in place. You need to stay
right,
right here where
right,
where you're from and stay here to like until you retire and beyond.
right.
You've decided, you know what? I don't need all y'all's retirement thing. I mean, I'm gonna take it, but I can
Right,
still live my life over
right,
here
right,
and have
right.
peace of mind and joy, So
Yeah.
I think
Or
that's
even staying because, you know, the you hear a lot of folks saying, "Well, I'm staying to fight the good fight. I'm not gonna let someone kick me out of
oh
my
my gosh,
country."
yes,
And I'm like,
yes.
"Well,
Who are you
bravo to
fighting?
you. Bravo
The
to you."
the 1%, the 1%ers, they're not even fighting. Like, who are you fighting?
Right,
Like,
right.
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I don't either. I'm like, "Okay, well, enjoy the fight. Imma go over
Right,
here, get my
yeah,
life set up over here,
right.
and I'll see you when I see you." So, and number 4, let me make sure that's yeah, number 4, now I lost it. Start making small intentional deposits into your emotional account every day. Morning stillness, whatever you like. I have a morning ritual.
Mhm.
I'll get up, I make my ginger lemon honey tea. I do my stretching, I do my meditation, and a few other things that I do in the morning. And that is my morning stillness, and everybody's going to be different. Someone might just lie in bed and meditate. That's great. But whatever your morning stillness is, that's going to deposit that emotional energy into your bank account. That's what you need to do. So it can be, music, laughter, prayer, or just saying no without feeling guilty, without apologizing for that no. Um, and you don't have to wait for a major break to refill, meaning you shouldn't be waiting until you have a, you know, all out, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. No, you want to fill yourself. You want to replenish that emotional your emotional account before you deplete, before you're negative, before that balance becomes a negative. You want to refill that. You want to refill that balance
And that's
um,
why it should be done on a daily basis.
on a
Every
daily
single
basis.
day, you should have something on your mind that's your like either your reward or something you're gonna do for yourself every
Yeah,
single day.
every
Yeah.
single day. Exactly. Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything, you know, huge. It can just
It
be
could be
something
having your
very
ginger lemon tea. It could be having
right,
doing your nails. It could be like
right.
just sitting on your balcony and letting the sun shine on your face.
That
Whatever it is that makes you feel good for 5 minutes,
exactly.
it
Right.
works.
Before you get your day started. Exactly. All right, so we are coming to the end, but before we go, we want to talk to you about the freedom formula. So, everything we're talking about today, balance, restoration, alignment, it is at the heart of our workshop, the Freedom Formula Journey workshop. And this space is created for women 45 and over who are ready to stop operating from depletion and start building from alignment. So, inside this workshop, we'll help you identify what's draining you, what deserves release, and what needs to be nurtured for your next season of growth. So, anything you want to add to that, Miss Miriam, before we move on?
Not really. You covered it.
Okay.
Just sign up, and so that you can learn to set these boundaries, like we did.
Mm,
And I'm not looking back. I'm enjoying my life, and I feel at peace.
mhm.
And I want to share what I've learned to
Yeah.
others, to women like
Yep.
me, other like-minded women, and also like and subscribe to our channels.
Exactly. Exactly. Both are channels. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what we will want you to do is before we close, we want you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, where am I giving more than I'm getting? And what needs a deposit today? And maybe that deposit is silence, maybe it's saying no, maybe it's asking for help. But whatever it is that you need to fill your cup to deposit into your emotional bank account, do that. And also, again, sign up for the Freedom Formula Journey workshop. And, let us help you get to that next level. And
Yeah, you know how you
from,
phone a friend, just sign up, and we'll
right.
be, and this is how we're going to help you.
Yeah. And the link will be in the description. So, I think that is it for today.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, my love?
Heart and minds are clear.
Heart. Okay. And also, please remember to share this with any woman that you feel is running on empty. And if you're ready to rebuild from a full cup, then the link will be in the description below. And, we'll see you there in January. All
All
right. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Bye.